This is The Gorge. This is a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a game or game-related topic. This week we are talking about pre- and early internet gaming culture.
Ooh, I am drinking wine. That's how fancy we are. We're talking about culture today, kids.
Yes.
Put on your Coke bottle glasses and your blazers with leather padded elbows. Because we're talking about culture.
I'll try to see if Broke for Free has some classier albums I can put on for this one.
We should put, like violins in the background or something. Ooh, fancy.
But no, this is a topic that I actually really wanted to talk about because I think it's such a weird... I've mentioned this a few times before, how video games are the newest form of media in existence, aside from books or plays or television or radio. The big categories, video games are the biggest, or the newest one, the newest way to tell a story.
It's there's really nothing like it, and it's only how far are we along now? 30 years, 40 years?
79, late 70s is when arcades started to become a thing.
Right. So
so late 70s. So we're coming up. Either we've passed 40 or we're pretty close to.
Yeah. We're getting to the 40 mark,
Yeah, mainstream games are almost 40 years old, which is, relatively, that's not, compared to film or television, which was probably the one, the one before that.
Yeah.
Which was,
the 40s and 50s? Late...
late 30s almost, yeah.
TV was really a thing, really, TV came into its own post-war, and this is a completely different topic, but TV kind of came into its own post-war, so that would be, late 40s, early 50s, and then really launched during, Vietnam and stuff. TV only it's weird to think about it. TV really only has, maybe 20 or 30 years on video games.
Yeah.
But even still, video games are the newest form of media.
Yeah.
Of entertainment media. So.
Yeah, and they're unique in that, really within the past past 10 to 20 years is really when communication and methods have increased in such a way that we haven't seen since the radio,
Right.
The idea of direct communication over great distances was the radio. And then the internet. Yeah,
the internet, which is really the internet has been such a straight. Obviously, again, that's another whole huge conversation. But the evolution of conversations on the internet and the way information is passed around has evolved so rapidly. Since I was a little, I'm not old, but I'm not young either. I'm going on 29. And just when I first got the internet at my house, it was dial-up. And I had we had a computer, we had a desktop in the basement, we had a computer room, like every other family in America who had a computer. We had a room specifically designated for the computer. And it was, I really don't even know how I possibly managed to navigate the early internet. In retrospect, I have no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing sometimes on the internet. So, it was so nebulous now, and now kind of the ground rules have been hammered out, and things have changed so much, and it's just, I don't know, it's really interesting.
It really was the last frontier of here's a whole new method of existing.
Yeah.
You really could compare it to the wild, the Old West. Here's a new form of existence that's developing, and it was basically lawless for a while, and now we have established guidelines and procedures for presenting information.
Yeah, the exchange of information. There's I mean, YouTube, probably the biggest thing has been just the availability of easy to consume video, because video is so much harder to fake. I mean, it's obviously, it can be done, but video, it acts so much as proof. You know, the fact is that, we'll get into it, but the fact is none of these crazy rumors could have existed. They don't exist in the same capacity these days, because we can take, video of our games, of what we play. We can create proof. There is no rumor of Bill's truck, what is it, Bill's backyard or under Bill's
backyard.
Truck. The truck with Mew under it, because, all you have to tell somebody is be like, take a video of it and prove it then, loser, and if they can't, then, they're lying, There is no, my uncle works at Nintendo.
Yeah, so, and that's, what I want to talk about is that, before we had the internet, and even the first early years of it, before we had, designated gaming news sites, or YouTube, or, ways to easily get information that companies want to present to us, we had to rely on hearsay. We had to rely on rumors passed around at school, or we had to rely on early message boards, and, it's this perfect, mishmash, because the timeline sync up is that, when the internet was starting to develop and becoming, a more mainstream thing, was also around the time that, we made the jump to 3D games.
Yeah, and video games got more complex, and they could start hiding things in video games even more.
So, there's a whole combination of, of different elements that just combined into this era that literally can't be repeated. We've talked about this before. I think we talked about this on the Christmas cast. This era can't be... We'll never get another, period of time that's like this, where, we have these kinds of rumors and stuff that we can break down. So...
Yeah.
What
was it that came out a few weeks ago that was, kind of brought us even, marginally close to that? Because we were talking about it, and we're this is probably the only time you'll ever get, halfway as close to that feeling of the old internet. Man, what was it?
I mean, we talked about how PT was a lot like that.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I'm getting, my memories all crossed and stuff.
Yeah,
I think it was PT, because that's what PT was, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, this is just a topic I've always been thinking about, and I just mention it from time to time. Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I just want to, I wrote up a whole lot of, bullet points and stuff to cover, so, there's not really...
Because, to me, what's interesting is that, I love this topic of conversation, and part of it is because, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was a little kid, mid 90s when I was a kid, it wasn't really still considered, normal, I guess, for a girl to have, video game stuff. Yeah, they existed, of course. Girls played video games even back in the beginning of it all. But it wasn't quite as, it wasn't 30% as it is today. It might be a little bit more than 30% these days. The number was much, much smaller, and I was one of I wasn't in it. So by the time I got on the internet, or by the time I got into video games, the internet was kind of like a ghost. It was a thing that you interacted with, but you never understood, but I still had the internet. But you were into video games far earlier than me.
Yeah.
When was your first video game? I'm really curious about that.
1990.
Wait!
I was a baby. I was a baby playing pinball on the NES.
Amazing.
I was straight up. I have seen the photographic evidence of little baby Ben playing pinball on the NES.
That is tremendous.
So they have straight up always been a part of my life.
That is insanity. I never even, not to get too much into, nostalgia episode, but, I can think my first major video game was, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, and that was 97?
98. Yeah. 98. So kind of a jump in time between you and I. And I missed out on a little bit of early game culture, but I love hearing about it. I mean, I know about it, of course, because I'm on the internet, and you can read about this now, it's in a history book, so yeah.
But, so, I mean, for me, like, the ones that, like, stand out is because it developed around the time that we started socializing as people. For me, as a child, was Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh
was,
my
like,
god,
the first...
Pokemon.
You know, because there was... When Red and Blue came out, there was nothing like it.
Right.
There was no video games that were like Pokemon. It was a completely brand new approach to the JRPG method, even before I knew what a JRPG was.
Right.
I just knew that this was the thing. You played Pokemon.
Was like my first real video, because I had Pokemon. Like, I mean, I had Pokemon.
Yeah.
I had a Game Boy, but I think I had a shirt with my brother. I can't remember. No, I might have had my own Game Boy. Anyways, but yeah, like it was so, because like I think what it was that like JRPGs were a thing before that. Like Final Fantasy existed before that. But that wasn't a game that little kids really played. You know, like a kid can play Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. They're not that complex.
I remember playing my cousin, like, and this is like a very distinct memory. I remember playing Final Fantasy 3, which was 6,
right.
You know, but back then I didn't know how video games worked besides like jump on the enemy in Mario. Like, so all I remember, like, literally all I remember doing is flying around in the airship.
That is such a little kid thing, though.
I didn't know like anything else about that game, but I just saw like the what do they call it? Like the vector mapping of like the parallaxing or whatever of the map.
Yeah.
And like the very basic 3D element of just flying the airship around. And that's all I remember of playing that game. Like, I didn't know, you know, Pokemon was like the first time that JRPGs like became a thing for everyone to play.
Yeah, because
not
that was
just
yeah, that was like the first. Something about Pokemon, I guess it's because in the end your number, I mean, like these days Pokemon is a little bit more numbers oriented. Like you can, you know, even little kids understand the numbers aspect of JRPGs. Because again, they have access to the internet. If they don't understand something, they can Google it, you know?
Yeah.
But like, because back in the day, the numbers aspect wasn't really a big deal. It was just, you had to be a higher level than your opponent, and as long as you had a Pokemon that was the opposite type of their Pokemon, you could win a fight. You could win a fight, you know? It wasn't, your strategies as a little kid were not that terribly complex, you know? At least mine weren't.
Yeah, no, like, it was designed, it's a Pokemon as a franchise designed for children to play and to pick up easily, and, you know, and Pokemon back then was such a new frontier for a lot of people, and also because those games were, like, I'm just gonna say it, they were poorly made.
Yeah.
You can check the list of things that just straight up don't work or were mistranslated.
Oh man, I love it though.
You know, just like, hey, this part of this attack doesn't work. It just doesn't do what it says. And like, you know, so obviously, you know, you would get, and because Pokemon also had sort of a competitive edge to it, you had the card game, you know, and you had the ability to battle each other. Mm-hmm. You know, you would brag about things, and that conflated into this rumor of, hey, did you find this Pokemon? And you know, there were so many things that, like, because the game is so glitch filled, like, you would, you know, stumble upon something that wasn't supposed to be in the game, but it, you know, you found it, and you know, you would tell your friends about that, and that would expand to more things. Like, you could glitch Mew into your party without having to do the trading thing with the, you know, the event thing. Right. So, you know, that led to more and more rumors building up, and, you know, the big ones were Mew underneath the truck, or Missing No, or Bill's Backyard, or the Pokegods, or one of my favorite ones was, if you evolve Dragonite, you can get Yoshi on your party.
I never heard that one.
Yeah,
I've heard all the other ones, but I've never heard that one. It's hilarious.
And, you know, they just, like, expanded like that. And, you know, this ties into one of the things that we're going to, like, keep going back to in this podcast episode, was, like, we had no way to confirm whether they were true or not. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, like, that's the kind of the real crux of it, is that there really was no way to prove anything. And even, like, early video game magazines, because the people who wrote for those things only had so many hours in a day. Yeah.
They couldn't possibly test all of these insane rumors and methods, because I mean, like, all of these rumors and methods are the one thing that kind of is shared amongst all of them is that they're really arbitrarily difficult, because that basically makes them impossible to replicate. You know, if you do something 100 times, then you could say, oh, well, I just lost count, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, the thing is, we had the missing no glitch.
Yeah.
Which is an arbitrary way of performing a task to get a benefit that works. Like, you can replicate that, so why not replicate beating the Elite Four 70 times?
Right.
And getting into the Bill's backyard to get the Pokegods. Like, back then we had no way to determine what was a glitch and what was in the game.
Yeah. And I, God, just thinking about them now is, like, they're insane when you think about them.
Yeah.
Like, because surely, here's the thing, surely some kid tried it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they had to have. Some kid playing Pokemon for 70 hours. They're trying to beat the Elite Four 70 times. I mean, like, I feel like I tried a few of the really, like, batshit insane things that you know, people suggested on the internet.
Yeah.
Or on the early internet, which is, we'll get into that in 2 seconds. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure I tried a few things because I was a dumb, impressionable kid and that sounded cool, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like FF7, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned it in the notes. Like, FF7 is like the holy grail of weird early internet rumors. You know what I mean?
For sure. And like Pokemon was like the predecessor to this, and you also got a lot of it in Ocarina of Time, you know?
Yeah, I think part of what causes it between, you know, Ocarina of Time was one of those games that has tons and tons of ridiculous rumors around it, right?
Yeah.
And the other is FF7, and it's obviously for the same reason. Everybody was playing these games.
Yeah.
Both games were so crazy ubiquitous. Everybody you knew had played FF7 or had played Ocarina of Time or had played Pokemon. So it meant you had more people interacting with a game, coming up with or experiencing some kind of ridiculous glitch, or just coming up with some wild story, you know?
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing about these three as well is, well, there's actually two big reasons, is that one of them, all three of them were brand new frontiers in gaming.
Yeah.
You know, there was never a game like Pokemon, and the jump from Link to the Past, or actually was Link's Awakening, I think it was
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, from Link's Awakening, from the top-down Zelda games to full-on 3D, and the same for Final Fantasy. The change from sprite-based to full 3D is one thing, because this is a brand new frontier, a brand new style of telling these games that we've never seen before. And on top of that, within the game, there is a lot of... We've never experienced games that went this heavily on plot before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, when you get that big jump, and the games, either due to poor translations, or due to the, like, combined with the fact that we weren't familiar with this method of presenting games, naturally builds to, you know, thinking that these unsolved plot points, or these, like, you know, methods of like, well, you know, Ocarina of Time and Fantasy VII are both, you know, they're darker games, you know?
For a little kid, yeah, for sure. Ocarina of Time, in retrospect, less so, but FF7 still holds up, yeah.
So things like unfreezing Zora's Domain in Ocarina of Time, or reviving Aeris in 7, it's like, of course we would think you could do those, because why would this game franchise that we've played before, why would it, you know, give us this unfulfilled, you know, sad, bad part to it? Yeah.
And that is kind of funny. It's like, it's such a weird thing to teach kids, like, bad things happen and sometimes you can't fix it. Like, that is a strange way to kind of look at it, is like, of course these rumors kind of existed because, you know, in early in little kids' heads, because kids were playing these games, you know.
Yeah.
Young kids were playing Final Fantasy VII, obviously, because I was, 12 years old, and my mom is like, what the hell are you playing? And, like, of course we would want to try and get the happiest possible ending. And so, yeah, I tried to unfreeze Zora's domain, for sure.
Yeah.
It was I must have heard 100 rumors. There was the whole using Din's Fire X amount of times in certain places will make Zora's domain unfreeze, that kind of thing. And of course none of it ever worked. But again, the whole idea was that the methods were so convoluted and so completely ridiculous that there really was no way for you to ever get them right. So you could never you could never fact check somebody, you know?
And one of the biggest ones I remember, and I remember, like, recently I actually looked up on the Wayback Machine to find an archive of it, was...
Oh boy.
Someone actually did the work with early Photoshop and photo editing tools to create fake screenshots of getting the Triforce in Ocarina of Time.
Oh my god, I've seen those screenshots too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And even today, they look really good.
Well, they have the benefit of being, they're a picture of a shitty Photoshop job.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you would never, back then, you would never expect someone to perfectly recreate the effect of, like, a CRTV.
Yeah,
a picture of a CRTV.
You would never expect it because, like, Photoshop was still such a new thing. Photoshop did exist. Photoshop just had its, 20th anniversary, last year. So Photoshop did exist in just the most basic of forms, but it existed. And so because of that, you could manipulate images to basically get across fake information. But because Photoshop itself was such a new thing, not everybody knew about it, so nobody was going to say that's Photoshopped, because nobody knew what Photoshop was yet.
And even if you did, you wouldn't think that they had the ability to recreate something like that to look that good. And so, we see this, and that just fuels the rumors. And again, because the internet was such an early frontier, we had no way of fact-checking this. We had no way to confirm it with developers or with, official, company people. We couldn't...
Nobody had a Twitter that you could just send
I was literally about to say, we couldn't tweet at them hey, is this real?
Yeah, that's the craziest part about, modern gaming culture, is that you can just have conversations with developers now.
Yeah.
The other day, the Horizon Zero Dawn team liked a tweet I had where I was, commented that, Horizon made me cry. And they, Guerrilla Games liked it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And years ago, the insanity of it now, that you can just have conversations in the open about your video games, and the companies themselves will comment on your conversations, is insane. Because back in the day, it was you basically were writing a letter and putting it in a bottle and throwing it into the ocean and hoping you're hoping your words reached the developer, basically.
And you would be lucky if you got a canned, printed out letter.
Yeah, thank you for your interest.
They send to every fan who sends them, a letter. Mm-hmm. So, we had no way of confirming whether these were true or not. And, of course, all the things that happened in Final Fantasy VII, with not just Aeris, but,
God.
all manner of weird things.
You don't even know. Because... this is, my weird area of expertise, because FF7 was a massive chunk of my childhood. It was, my first major video game that I devoted just a huge number of hours into, and obsessed over, and was part of the fandom, and bloody blah, was on the forums. There's a whole website out there. I don't even know if it exists anymore. I think it's called, FF7 Central or something like that. I don't even know if it's still out there. It might be. But the number of just ridiculous, impossible rumors. Off the top of my head, I can think of the rainbow chocobo, the wooden chocobo, The stone chocobo, I think, was one of them. Just these different, like, types of chocobos that could then take you to different parts of the map. And, of course, one of them would inevitably take you somewhere that could, like, let you bring Eris back to life.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
Of course,
like,
that was the end goal of all FF7 rumors.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, all sorts of insane shit. The idea that you could get Tifa killed instead of Eris was one of them. I remember that very, very clearly. And I tried that one. That's one of the insane ones I tried. Because I like Tifa, but I was like, this is a thing I can replicate. Because the idea is basically, if you are rude as shit to... I swear to God, it sounds so insane now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you... The rumor on the website was if you were super, super rude to Tifa the whole time, she would, like, push Aerith out of the way at the end, at the part where she's supposed to die, and she would take the blow instead. Right?
Yeah, and, you know, even that one has precedence because you have the Golden Saucer date.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
totally.
like, that feels believable because you know that relationship points exist in the game.
Right, and so, but I tested it out. I swear to God, I tested that one out. And it didn't work. Of course it didn't.
Of course not.
But yeah. I picked every single rude response possible. And was super, I felt bad the whole time because I really liked Tifa. And was super nice to Eris the whole time. And no, it didn't work. Of course it didn't work, because then the story would fall apart. If you subjected the game to even 5 seconds of critical thought that, like, the average 13-year-old girl just was not going to use, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like 13-year-olds are a lot smarter these days, because a 13-year-old would be, like, these days would be like, no, the story, they'd have, like, a 400-page dissertation on Tumblr telling me why... The story would fall apart. And they're right, of course. Like, the story doesn't work unless Eris dies. So, like, yeah, if I had used my brain for 5 seconds, I would have known, no, this wouldn't work. But, like...
But, you know, you don't think that. You think there has to be a way to revive this character, because why would they kill a party member?
Right. Yeah.
Because, like I said, this is the big push towards story-based, you know, games, like story, you know, driven games instead of just, like, objective based. Mm-hmm. So you're still thinking in terms of gameplay, which is, you know, yeah, of course you can bring Eris back because she's removed from your party. And you don't have a full party anymore. Why would they make a game where you don't have that? So
why would they make a game where Eris has an ultimate weapon and a final limit break? Never mind the fact that both of those things can be obtained at the end of Disc 1 when everybody else's can be gotten at the end of Disc 3. Like, again, common sense says, yeah, of course she's not coming back. Why else would they give you all of her final shit at the end of the first disc? You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's just smart. But, I mean, you don't think about that kind of thing because, like you said, it just didn't... For the time, it didn't make logical sense. Like, you don't kill off a major character like that. It just wasn't a thing that happened. And it was, like, hugely traumatic. I mean, it's still considered, like, one of the more, like, you know, one of the more, like, traumatic things that can happen in a video game when you were a kid. Come on. Yeah. And it doesn't help that, like you said, the games were buggy pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So, like... Yeah, so, you can walk into the church and there's Eris' ghost, you know?
Yeah, for a second, because... And no, that's not a hint that you can revive her. That's because the game loads poorly, and it never truly removes her character model from that environment. It just makes it invisible.
Yeah, so she's there for a half second and then she's gone. Like...
Yeah.
It's not even like a programmed-in ghost. It's just...
They didn't plan it. Yeah, they didn't plan it out right. Yeah.
It just kind of happened like that because you can't even go back to that church until the end of the game. So why would they really optimize that area?
Yeah, exactly. And, like, before that, Eris is almost always in it. So, you know, it's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, you get stuff like this all the time. And actually, you know, speaking of that, one of the ones that I didn't write down, but I remember it, is playing as Luigi in Mario 64.
Oh,
which,
man.
For the same reason of, like, precedence, which is, yeah, you can play as Luigi in this game. You can play as Luigi in all other Mario games.
Right.
You know, and conflict, you know, going off of, like, well, the developers just didn't do it right, is there is a plaque in the middle of the game, or like in the middle of the castle, that has like illegible text scrawled on it. And if you look closely, it almost looks like it's saying L is real. But it's not saying anything. It's an N64 game.
Yeah, it doesn't
the
have textures.
Yeah, the texture is like 24 pixels. Like, it doesn't say anything. It's just scribblies.
Yeah. It's just
and
nonsense.
that's just like... And even more fueling the rumors in Ocarina of Time, actually, is that there are a small handful of textures that are reused from Mario 64.
Yep.
So, like, you notice that, and you think, oh, this must mean something. No, they were just lazy, and they needed a rock texture. And
they just wanted to cut corners. Why remake a rock texture when you had a perfectly serviceable one in Mario 64? But... You know, that brings up the other topic here, is back in the day, we had no idea how video games were made.
Yeah. We didn't, like, and that combined with, like, we didn't have that information readily available as how games are actually developed. They just existed in this form that we perceived with our brains. And I'm pretty sure that's why, as a kid, I had a lot of nightmares about, like, going out of bounds in games, or, like...
And to this day... Going out of bounds in video games gives me the fucking creeps. No lie. To this day, because we've been talking a lot about Fallout again, because we have no control over our lives. The part in Fallout 4, when you go to the Nakano residence, and you have to go outside of the map border, I swear to God, it creeped me out. I'm not wrong, right? It gave you a weird, like, you're doing something wrong.
It is weird. Yeah, because, like, it's a thing where, like, every so often it'll happen, and you'll clip through a wall, or you'll, like... Or, you know, back in the day on the early N64 PS1 era games, like, they just set up invisible walls, you know? Oh, you can't walk here.
Yeah.
You just can't. And, like, they would, you know, map, okay, it's just a big empty field beyond that. And it's like, well, you can't comprehend the idea of, like, there's an invisible wall here, I just can't go here because the game won't let me. You think, like, if I were to get past this wall, I could go to that field, and what could be in that field?
Nothing. The answer is nothing. But
the answer is nothing, because it's not programmed. But in our brains, we think they programmed this, not because, well, we can't just have the environment end.
Right.
We have to continue it somehow, so we'll just throw in a grass texture. Yeah. We don't think that. We think you could possibly go there and find secrets.
Yeah, you could find the Triforce or whatever fucking thing, you know?
And I would have dreams about that happening, about like going off the map and then not being able to get back in and being stuck there forever.
And that's technically what could happen, because of course, you know, you glitched out of the map, idiot, now you can't get in. You know, you can't get back, you need to restart your game because you did something stupid. But, like, again, kids didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't understand how any of it worked. To me, video games were just like magic in cartridges or on discs. Well, you know?
You know, we treated games kind of like the same way we treated TV or movies, which is like, we know that, you know, when you're filming a movie or a TV show, like, the studio doesn't just end into void space.
Right.
You know, like, we understand that, you know, wherever they're filming is a place that exists and you can walk around wherever. They're just not doing it. Like, we understand that. So when you play a video game and you don't have that knowledge of, like, yeah, the boundary is there and then you can't go past it, and then there's just some odd textures or just some low poly material to create the illusion of it. We don't think that. We think you can go further into this city or whatever.
Yeah, the absence of information makes your brain come up with all kinds of crazy explanations in a way. And it... I mean, again, it's just the fact that we didn't really get how it worked. And I'm trying to think of some good examples, and I'm kind of coming up blank right now, but I know they exist. Like, you know, I know.
It ties back to, like, we have one thing to be precedent, which is, in Pokemon, we had the truck. It's an area of the game that it's nearly impossible to get to. You know, and there's no logical way to go there. You know, you have to you basically have to trick the game into, letting you go to that environment, because the way it works is you board the SS Anne, and once you complete all the stuff in there, and you walk out the door, the boat leaves.
Right.
What you can do, though, is if you do all the stuff you get in there, and then lose a trainer battle,
yeah,
it warps you to the Poke Center, but it doesn't trigger the event of the boat leaving.
Right.
So you have everything you needed out of it, but the boat environment still exists on the map.
Mm-hmm. So
you progress through the game until you can get, an ability, and then you can go down to the docking area.
Yeah.
Which you should be able to access. But, so there is a way to do it in this area that should be blocked off. So we have this precedent in our minds of, well, we did it before, we can do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's stuff like Ocarina of Time or like Mario 64. Not so much in Final Fantasy, because that was pretty clear on where you could and couldn't go, because it was top down, and it was, there wasn't a way for you to trick the camera into panning out into an area that you technically weren't supposed to see.
Right. I feel like, I'm sure there was something like that. I'm just totally drawing a blank.
I mean, you know what? I'm sure there were, like, doors painted on the pre-rendered backgrounds that were just they were just textures.
Yeah, places like that drove me crazy. I mean, drove me crazy. And all the I mean, like, FF7, when you really take a step back from it, was really weird. And I think that's kind of what helps contribute to its, like, strange early video game internet cultural icon status, is just that it, as a game, was really weird and would give you just really random shit that literally served no purpose. Like I don't know if you ever got any of these things when you were playing FF7. I know you've only played it like once or twice.
Yeah.
But there's an item called the 1/35th scale soldier. Did you ever get that?
I got that.
There's like 3 or 4 in the whole game, right? They serve no purpose. They don't do anything. You can't trade them for anything. You can't even sell them. They just are in the game. And literally nobody knew why. And I'm sure it had to do with some side quest that was probably canned, but they left the item in the game, right? And there's another item like that too. Some kind of like vacuum buster? I can't remember the name of it right now. And I probably should have put those in the notes, but it's fine. Everybody listening right now who played FF7 and like lived my childhood will understand. But there were all sorts of things like that. Just weird, stupid shit. Because the game, they had ideas for the game, and they like, knowing this, I'm almost 29 now. I know now, like, they had a side quest envisioned for this shit, and it got canceled. They just decided to not go through with the side quest, right? But the stuff stayed in the game, but it serves no purpose. You can't sell it, you can't trade it, you can't do anything with it. But, like, as a kid, we didn't understand that concept, right? Like, if it's in... Yeah. To us, if it is in the game, it exists in the game for a purpose. Like, it has to have a reason, because, like, why would there be pointless stuff in video games? Oh, you sweet summer children. You had no idea.
Like, and, that actually is something, like, I didn't write it down in the notes, but, like, based, speaking off of we didn't know how games were made, we didn't have the information really available, stuff like that, like the 1/35th scale soldier... That was all over 3D games. Yes! There were so many things in early 3D games that were just like half-completed quests that got taken out, but the object remained. Banjo-Kazooie had the whole stop and swap thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which was these items you could only get at the end of the game. They like, at the end of the game, like the final cutscene showed one of the characters showing off photographs of these objects that you could pick up and would go, that they plan to, carry over to Banjo-Tooie. The idea, I think this is crazy. The idea is that they realized that if you take a cart out of the N64 while it's still on, there is a 30-second window before the RAM is dumped.
Huh.
So Rare's thinking was, you do whatever you need to do in Banjo-Kazooie, and then you real quick swap the carts in and out. And the data for Banjo-Kazooie stays in the RAM, for the temporary memory of the N64, and it could transfer over to Banjo-Tooie.
What?
Yeah.
No way!
That was their idea.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And
that's so weird, even to this day.
Yeah, like imagine that being a thing.
That's breaking my grown-up brain, because I didn't even know. I guess, of course the N64 had internal RAM, but again, video games are still kind of magic to me in a lot of ways. Like, of course a video game had to have internal memory, because it was still, even back then, a video game console was still just a really, 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 really early version of a computer, you know? It was just a very, very, very rudimentary computer. So, like, of course it had to have memory and RAM, right? But, like, it only just occurred to me that, of course, the N64 had RAM.
But it was still cartridge-based.
It's still cartridge-based, yeah, of course. I'm so stupid.
But, so, you know, you could see these previews of, like, well, here's what you can get if you do the whatever method that will be revealed later on. And that fell through. I think it's because later models of the N64, once they started needing, like, the expansion pack to hold more memory, like, they got rid of the 30-second window.
Yeah.
Or, like, the carts just couldn't hold the data. Whatever it was, like, the plan fell through. But the early methods in Banjo-Kazooie still existed, so you could get these items. They didn't do anything.
Right. And so everybody would speculate what the hell these items did.
Yeah. And the same thing with Final Fantasy VII. And, you know, even, like, stuff like GoldenEye or, like, Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark had cheese scattered around levels. It didn't do anything, but it was going to be part of something that got removed.
Right, yeah.
And it's the same thing with 7, is you have all these, like, items or areas of the game that are, like, useless or, you know, half completed because they had plans and they didn't take out the data.
They just ran out of time. They just they didn't get around to finishing it, basically. And they had to prioritize other parts of the more important parts of the game, and so the game ships. But all that stuff is still in there, because you can never really delete anything.
And, you know, we didn't have patches back then.
Right.
You couldn't, like, you know, you couldn't just put the disc in and it would download a new version that fixed the glitch where Aeris appears for a split second.
Right.
You know, it didn't work that way.
There was no DLC to turn those rando objects into stuff that was, you know, meaningful, you know?
Yeah, it didn't work that way.
No, of course not. Oh my god. Oh my god.
So,
yeah.
There were so many, like, and that's, like, again, the fact that this existed in the early days of the internet, where, you know, we didn't have information readily available, we didn't have social media, we didn't have Facebook or YouTube to prove these things right or wrong. We were at the point where, first off, we depended on word of mouth, spreading, you know, rumors around the playground at recess, like, oh, I could do this in Pokemon, or did you unfreeze the Zora's domain?
Right.
You know, like I did. I can't show you though because my brother deleted my save file.
Right. Yeah. Or my uncle works at Nintendo and he swears that you can unfreeze Zora's domain. That kind of thing.
Like, oh yeah, I got Aeris back. I know how to do it. I can't do it now though. It takes 100 hours. You know that.
Right.
And when the internet came out, you know, and started becoming more available for people to use, those rumors just spread. And again, we didn't have any way to fact check them, so they just went untethered. They
just multiplied and you know, other people, because again, there was no way to verify it because there was no way to put video on the internet. So like some jerk on a message board could be like, you know, I brought Aeris back, and then there's 20 other idiots saying, yeah, I brought Aeris back too. So now here's this feedback loop of people, and you think, oh, well, maybe this completely insane method will make it work. And it was insane. It had something to do with this guy, our sick guy in the tube in Sector 5.
It was something like you get Aeris's like ultimate limit breaks, like her level 4 limit breaks, and then she's strong enough to heal him.
And he gives her something, and
yeah,
I don't know.
That was just one of many, many methods. And, you know, this was also around the time that stuff like Game Shark started becoming, or Action Replay started becoming, you know, a product that you could buy, and you could glitch Aeris back into your party that way.
But she didn't, like, the best proof that Aeris was meant to be dead and would stay dead is she didn't have any dialogue. Like,
Yeah,
her boxes come up empty.
But you could take a picture of that.
Yep.
And put it on a message board.
Yep.
And say, I brought Eris back, here's my proof.
Right.
Well, but we didn't know that you cheated and you hacked the game to get her in, because we didn't know what hacking was.
Right. There was... You could get to the dev room in the game, that kind of thing. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy shit,
Yeah.
But nobody... It was impossible to verify. That's the biggest thing, is it was impossible... Unless you did the work and put in the hundreds and hundreds of hours to try and get the Triforce, to try and get Luigi, to try and bring back Eris, to try and get a fucking Rainbow Chocobo. Like, there was no way. Because you don't have enough hours in the day. I
feel like there's this, cabal of characters. Like Luigi, Missingno, and Eris just hanging out in, this null space. Hanging out in hanging out in, bathing suits in the unfrozen Zora's domain. With the Triforce hovering above them.
And they're all the fucking video game Illuminati with their fucking, secret society of they'll never get it right. We'll continue to rule. Stupid shit like that. What would blow my mind, I swear to God, though, I really wish, because, it took... What was it? It was, Doom or something that had a secret hidden in it for, 20 years and nobody found
Final
it.
Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX had a side quest that took 13 years to actually find that it existed in the game.
But it was there was also Wolfenstein or Doom or some first person game had a secret room that a developer had snuck in that was a little shrine to himself, basically, or because you didn't really have credits in the same way back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the game that it is.
And that was hidden for years and years, because it was so convoluted to get to it. I swear to God, I almost want there to be a way of bringing back Eris.
Right?
25 years later, somebody finds it.
The ultimate thing to do is that if the remake ever does come out, I want Nomura to sneak in an alternate Eris Lives ending.
But it's exactly as ridiculously convoluted as it was on the internet.
Hire Yoko Taro to create the method of bringing Eris back. Because that fucker will do it.
He'll find a fucking way, and it'll be the most ridiculous method possible to just make it happen. He'll have you fucking... You've got to get everybody to be 777777, and it's all got to be perfect. And if you fuck up one thing, it's not happening. Get back to the start. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I swear to God, I wish they would do it. I wish they would find a way. What they'll probably do is make a DLC instead.
Yeah, for sure. But now what is kind of interesting is that I've heard a lot of people say, before we move on to the next, category of this, is to kind of close this out, people say that, I saw a post recently that was I want to relive this era. I want to make a game that I sneak, because for a while there was also one in San Andreas, which was the idea of Bigfoot existing in San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Yeah, well,
and that was right on the...
Yeah. Technically, there is still kind of that. I was reading something on the internet the other day that,
No, what it is people thought there were ghosts driving cars at night. What it is that the game will randomly spawn cars in locations.
Yeah.
But their parking brakes aren't on. So if the car spawns on a hill, it'll just roll down.
Right. Oh my God.
So, but the Sasquatch one isn't true in San Andreas.
Right.
But it kind of became a big joke for Rockstar, which is why Sasquatches are in the Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare DLC.
But there's also, the aliens on the mountain in San Andreas, and Rockstar made fun of that eventually, too, in GTA 5, I think.
Yeah. But so I saw a post that was I want to create a game where you get a Sasquatch rumor like that, and then he's actually in it.
Yeah.
And, but they said, but I can't do that because someone will just hack the game to find the Sasquatch model.
Yeah. And
that reminded me that this happened actually pretty recently. Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham Asylum, which existed, fairly deep into the internet, history. Back, we knew stuff back then.
Yeah, it was like 2009, right?
Yeah, we had bypassed the era of, internet rumors. Mm-hmm. But they did manage to hide a teaser for Arkham City.
Really?
In that game. And what it was is Batman has explosive gel, which is you can use it to detonate, cracked walls.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wall in... And talk about, internet rumor fuel. There is a wall in the warden's office in Arkham Asylum that is not cracked, but you can spray it and detonate it, and it will reveal blueprints for Arkham City.
Oh my god.
Which, that is, perfect, video game, did you know if you do spray the wall, it'll blow up and you'll see plans for the next game? Or,
Right.
If you heard that for, Mario 64 or, Final Fantasy VII, you'd be like, no, that's
Fuck
stupid.
off. That's not it. Yeah. There was, and like we were saying before, for a while, PT had that kind of air about it.
But, so here's the other thing I want to follow up on that is that, no one found it.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about, I didn't know it was Arkham,
it was Arkham Asylum. Yeah.
No one knew about it.
Rocksteady had to say, hey, there's a secret! Go look at our secret!
You hit it too well! You crazy bastards!
So, it is totally possible to hide bullshit in your games now. In fact, Pokemon is embracing it.
Yeah. In
that there are certain Pokemon that evolve by flipping your 3DS upside down.
Yeah. Which is, the ultimate...
Which...
Again, imagine being, if I was when I was 10 years old, 11 years old playing Pokemon Red, if somebody had told me, you've got to evolve this Pokemon by flipping your Game Boy upside down, I would have been like, fuck off, it doesn't work that way.
And then I would have tried it.
Totally.
Yeah, because, yeah, but, then you would think, oh, I didn't hold it upside down well enough.
Right,
or whatever.
I didn't shake it. Right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can still do this, and I would love to see it in a game. To see some dumb method of unlocking a secret.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding will probably have that.
I'm putting all my hopes and dreams in Death Stranding, my man, because Lisa from PT is in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
So anything is possible.
Yeah. But, it wasn't all just weird rumors and unspoken, urban legends and stuff like that. There was also, back then in, the pre or early internet eras.
The dark days.
Yeah, we mentioned, we don't have information readily available, and, it was a very different method of getting, legitimate information.
Right.
We didn't have, press conferences every month. We didn't have trailers for trailers going up on YouTube.
Right.
We had to wait for...
We had magazines.
We had these things you would get every month. And it would have the articles in them, and it would show you what the game might look like.
I'm aging just hearing you talking about it. It's horrible. I'm so old. Now, I had video game magazine subscriptions. Of course I did.
Oh, yeah. I would get Nintendo Power and EGM. and
Yeah, I had EGM and the official PlayStation magazine.
Yeah.
Those were my my subscriptions. Oh, man.
And I know that the best friends mention this in their podcast all the time, especially Pat, and I love it because he's right, is that we would find out about games a week before they came out.
Oh, I know. It was the best. You didn't have to wait.
You would see, an advertisement in a magazine, and it's hey, this game's coming out, and it would show some 90s, stock art kid playing the game. I fucking love the aesthetic of, late 90s, early aughts advertising.
Oh my god, because it's the worst. It's hideous, and it's
the
amazing.
Worst and the best.
John Romero is gonna make you his bitch. Oh my god. Did you forget about Daikatana? Because I
I can never forget about Daikatana.
No, but do you know Daikatana is on Steam now?
Fuck.
I know. I kind of want to try it. I kind of want to play it just to see what it's like.
No,
I never played Daikatana.
I never did either, but like, fuck, I remember that.
Oh my god.
But you know, we would also get that weird era, and this is a little bit later. But remember the PS3 ads?
Oh yeah. Oh, they
the
were
fucking
so
like
weird.
baby,
oh,
the baby doll.
Baby. Oh man, I had blocked those from my memory because they traumatized me. They were so weird.
But you know, and those were like
thinking?
those were later. But like you would get a lot of like really weird, bizarre ads. Where like a lot of them were also like mean too.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it would show like it would show like whatever new frickin' hotness like beating up the old mascot character. You know. Like, it would show fucking, like, Bubsy and, like, Sonic's in the trash can.
Yeah,
like,
that is weird. Was it?
Yeah,
it was
right.
Strangely, yeah, fucking Bubsy, whatever. Fucking Bubsy.
I remember one. I remember the advertisement for Glover. And the advertisement for Glover was him, like, beating up, like, Mario and Lara Croft and, like, Spyro. And it's like, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, how are you holding up Glover franchise? Yeah, okay, buddy. the illustrious Glover franchise, because everybody's really excited for Glover 3D Odyssey, right? Fuck off.
Or there was the Dreamcast one, the Dreamcast ad, where it was like, if Lara Croft and Guts were real, they'd play with each other, not you.
Yeah,
like, what?
Weird. Like,
what does that mean?
All of these fucking, like, weirdly sexual, weirdly confrontational video game ads? Like, who was the target audience? Like, was it just like kids would fucking buy anything? That's what it was. Was it kids would fucking buy anything?
It was that 90s edge of, like, pro wrestling and comic books, you know?
Yeah, fucking
Rob Liefeld! blood murder!
Oh my god, you remember the fucking Silent Hill 2 cover for
BGM? My favorite artwork for Silent Hill ever is fucking James, full-on action hero, zombies tearing at his clothes while he's doing the
fucking jacked.
Yeah,
oh my
his
God.
shirt is like bursting off, and he's doing the Rob Liefeld grimace as he's got his giant ass pistol.
Oh my God.
It's like, that's too much for fucking Resident Evil, much less Silent
Hill, where you play some schlubby middle-aged guy who murdered his wife. Like, chill the fuck out, EGM. It's clear that, like, whoever they, like, told to draw these fucking illustrations knew nothing about these games, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they had never even played them. Like, shut the fuck up.
But this is what we got, like, to pump us up about it, you know? Or it's like, the whole advertising aesthetic for, like, the late, mid-90s was, like, play this game and you will die.
Again, John Romero is gonna make you spit.
It's like, you know, like the ad for Street Fighter would be like a little kid with like bruises and casts all over, and it's like, Ryu will kick your ass. And it's like, what? That doesn't make me want to play the game. I don't want to be
Kombat's gonna beat you up and take your lunch money, you fucking nerd. You know, like, Jesus Christ.
Or it's like, you'll want to play this game so much you'll abandon your hot girlfriend while she's naked.
Oh man, like that fucking Nintendo commercial. That's the fucking Nintendo ad that's like, you want to play
the Game Boy
with
Advance ads. Where it's like,
weird. Who the fuck? That's Nintendo, the most sexless company on Earth. Like, who the fuck thought that was a good idea? I want to know.
Back then it was the most sexless, Urbosa.
Oh my God. Wow.
But like,
video games.
that was like how we got information, and even beyond like the fucking crazy ass advertisements, we'd see screenshots for games that did not look like the final product.
Oh no, not at all.
Which some of my favorite stuff ever is looking at, like, really old beta screenshots, and I miss that. Like, you know, what do we get now is we get, you know, concept trailers that look way better than the final product, but back then we'd get, like... Yeah, Ubisoft. We would get, like, screenshots of, like... We would... Remember... Do you remember getting screenshots of 3D model versions of the Final Fantasy VI cast?
No, I missed that one entirely. Really?
Yeah, there were really early beta screenshots. I think it was like the prototype for 7.
Really?
And it showed like Locke and Terra and Edgar in 3D models that looked like very early versions of like the design for Final Fantasy VII models.
Wow, I have to Google that when we get done.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Or Mother 3 screenshots.
Yes, I do know the Mother
N64.
3 screenshots. Yes, the Mother for N64. That is a fucking ride. That game just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and we would get stuff like that. Like, I remember seeing early screenshots of Ocarina of Time, and Link was wearing a brown undershirt.
Yeah.
You know? And
like
it's
the
like
old
that...
art style. Yeah, like the way he would in, like, you know, fucking... Like, the art, the outfits he wore in the original Zelda games, like, that illustrations, he wore the brown undershirt under the green tunic, and then that got stripped away.
And now, you know, at some point that got changed, and we don't get that kind of, like, look, either the game looks almost exactly like it's going to look, you know, when it's released, or, you know, like, there might be a few minor changes here and there, but, like, when we see a trailer nowadays, like, that's more or less what it's gonna look like.
Unless it's BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But even Infinite's, like, art style didn't change that much.
No, but I mean, everything else about it did. That's about as close as it gets, really, like, to the modern analog. And that happens a lot. Like, you can see that with fucking Persona 5 to be even more relevant. With, like, you know, with Persona 5, there are those screenshots out there of completely different, where it's, like, where you would plan to... There's screenshots of Ann and Morgana and Akira and Ryuji, and they're all sitting around in LeBlanc with the map to Kamoshida's castle. You know? Like, in the actual place. So, like, that's the closest analog we have now is screenshot and video proof that somewhere along the way, major portions of the gameplay itself were changed.
Yeah.
The games, they don't look too different, but the mechanics have very clearly changed in some pretty dramatic ways.
There was a shift in storytelling, or there was a shift in, like, mechanics at some point during that. But, like, not to the scale that we get
No,
back then. And, you know, and I really like seeing that stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. I remember watching the very first trailer for Kingdom Hearts, like the very, 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 very first teaser of it. And everyone looks totally different. Really? All the character models look way different. Like, it's super obvious.
Because I've never...
I'll link it to you.
Yeah.
I'll link it to you. It's like, it's actually, like, kind of interesting to be like,
really?
they overhauled everything.
Because, like, I remember my first exposure to Kingdom Hearts, speaking of video game magazines, was through fucking, I think Game Informer was my first, like, the first place I saw it.
I think I know the exact article you're thinking of, too.
Yeah.
Where it was like, Disney and Final Fantasy, what?
Yes! Oh my god, that's totally what it was!
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's exactly what it was like the first like, article write-up that it was, like, you know, Disney and fucking Squaresoft, which is what they were back in the day. I think they were still Squaresoft at the time. It was like the article is like, they're collaborating on something. What the hell, you know? And like, that was like my
Mickey Mouse and Cloud Strife. What?
Yeah, what? It still doesn't make any goddamn sense 20 something years later, or however long it's been.
Yeah, but
it's still, you know.
And that's like, you know, we would see very early screenshots of, like, you know, environments and stuff like that, and it's almost something sort of like almost haunting about seeing really, really early shots of it. Kind of like in a found footage kind of way, almost.
Totally! And I think,
I
think it does kind of go back to that idea, like we said earlier, that we didn't understand how video games were made. And even though we're grown-ups now, we know how games are made. But, like, it almost, like you said, it feels like a weird found footage thing. It feels like the weird ghost of a video game that doesn't exist anymore, but should.
Yeah, and there are, like, I remember seeing very, very, very early shots of Mario 64, and, like, again, they completely changed everything about that game by the time it came out, and it's just, like, you know, I don't know why they stopped doing it, because I love seeing stuff like that. I want to see, you know, speaking of Persona 5, like, we've seen screenshots where it's like, God, you know, originally you did, you know, your meetings in the LeBlanc, like, cafe area, not on the school roof, where it's like, that's cool. I want to see what Ann's earliest character model looked like. Yeah. You know, I want to see, like, not just concept art. I want to see, like, what did Morgana look like, you know, in the, like, what did his first model look like?
Well, there are still kind of the ghosts of the old awful character portraits. Those are still on the disc. They're hideous, but that's about as close as you're gonna get. They are awful. Right. I can't even explain why the art style is so bad, because it's basically the same. They're hideous. Go Google them.
But, like, you know, and that's, like, you know, artwork and stuff like that, but I just love seeing, like, screenshots of, like, here's what the UI was going to look like, or, you know, here is what, you know, the Phantom Thieves gear used to look like, you know.
The earliest versions of fucking P3 are a trip, if you want to go Google that when we get done.
Yeah, I'm going to look up that, for sure.
Because those are, I mean, it was a very strange thing. It was kind of like the ghost of, like, the idea of what would eventually become the game we got is there, but it's definitely a weirder looking, more, I guess, more SMT? Like SMT, you know, Persona and SMT are two very different but similar properties, right? But, like, the original P3 concepts were very much more of, like, they had that SMT feel to them, and then it kind of softened and became, you know, your visual novel, dungeon crawling, fucking roguelike, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And they're just really weird. There's actual video. There's actual video of those of gameplay. Yeah. And it's really bizarre.
I'm definitely into that. And, like, you know, we were on the frontier of the internet, so, you know, when these later games started happening, like, you know, the PS2 era, or, like, the GameCube era, where, like, we were starting to, like, more branch out, I remember very distinctly is kind of like the last version we got of this was Kingdom Hearts 2 for me. And that is because, you know, it was kind of like on the forefront of, like, well, we had that Another Side, Another Story trailer at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, like, you know, just that weird concept trailer that wasn't really supposed to be anything, and then it kind of became something.
Yeah.
That was very much like the rumors of, like, well, you know, of Final Fantasy 7, where it's like, oh, there's this, like, part of the game that was unfinished, and that leads to a rumor of, like, well, there must be more to it.
Yeah.
We had something that was unfinished, and will lead to more, so now we have a chance to actually discuss it legitimately, and as more information for Kingdom Hearts 2 started coming in, and again, this was before we got a trailer every X couple of months, before we had, you know, developer interviews whenever we wanted, before we could tweet at the developers to say, hey, what's up with this? We would just get screenshots and occasional trailers in Japanese that we'd have to download over QuickTime.
Oh my god.
Or Real Player or whatever, you know, to watch them.
I'm having fucking war flashbacks.
There would be threads and threads on GameFAQs, which is, and to the point where we even had little nicknames for the characters we'd see because we didn't know what they were called yet.
Right, yeah. Yeah, of course.
And, you know, we don't really get that level of, like, discussion anymore.
Right.
Where it's like, well, because, you know, now we get a trailer and we can kind of take the trailer apart a little bit, but, like, they're going to give us the information we need to talk about it, you know?
Yeah, eventually, if you wait, you know, 3, 4, 5 months, you'll get another trailer.
Think about it this way, like, recently we saw the trailer for Death of the Outsider, right?
Right.
Well, we know what that's going to be about.
Yeah.
Billy Lurk and Dowd are going to go try to kill the Outsider.
Right.
You know, like, and we saw some cool powers that she's going to use to do it.
Right,
but
yeah.
We can talk about how cool they are, but, like, we know what's going to happen.
generally speaking, like, there's still some speculation, but it's not quite the same degree of speculation, because the fact is that, like, the developers have been very, unlike back in the day, the developers at Arcane have been very open via Twitter. There's the official Dishonored Tumblr, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've been very open in giving more information. They don't say anywhere in the trailer that the sword that Billy has is the sword that killed the Outsider 5,000 years ago that turned him into a god. That's something that got brought up on Twitter. Somebody asked fucking Harvey Smith, I think, the man himself, and Harvey was like, yeah, that's the sword that killed the Outsider 5,000 years ago. Like, we have access to that information now, so the idea of that level of crazy speculation just doesn't really need to exist.
And, and not to disparage what we have now, because, like,
it's
objectively,
great.
It's great. We can ask developers questions. We can, send our complaints, or we can send our praises. We can show off, fan art we've drawn, or, just say, hey, I really like your game, and we can get a response from them, and that's great. We can get information we need. If we have questions, we can get them answered. And, obviously that's great, and I'm not going to say, like, no, don't, keep it all hush-hush, because, that's incredibly frustrating when the technology is available to give it to us.
Right, yeah.
But, there was something fun about
I think
discussing...
the occasional secret isn't so bad either.
Yeah. Well, I just remember, like, being, like, on Kingdom Hearts 2, because this was, like, the one that I was, like, super into, I followed everything about it, is we don't have a game where we're referring... So, who is this blonde-haired kid? We called Roxas BHK.
Because blonde-haired kid. I remember that.
We didn't have a name for him, or like, blindfolded kid for Riku, because we weren't sure if that was actually Riku or not.
Right, yeah.
So we just had all these, like, things, and then finally we got Chain of Memories came out, and that led to more speculation, because we had slightly more information, but nothing that directly tied it to what we've seen in the Kingdom Hearts 2 trailers yet, so that just, like, it was this great period of, like, frequent online discussion and information, like, trying to be parsed from snippets of data, and it was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It is fun. It feels kind of like an ARG in a way, but not
a little
really.
bit, yeah.
Well, it's not an ARG, which is a whole other basket of worms, and isn't really as much of a thing anymore. I mean, it is a thing, but it's kind of the same concept in a way.
Once, like, unfortunately, again, because of the spread of information, once we figured out how to decode websites, like, the ARG kind of died as a result.
You can still have, like, they have but, I mean, you have to do it very, very right. Like, the fucking Sombra ARG was garbage, because it was just impossible.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. I mean, it was just terrible. It was poorly put together. You can have a good-ass ARG as long as everybody is aware that they're playing an ARG. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to say, like, well, this website is owned by Blizzard. It's not real. Yeah, no fucking shit. We know it's not real. It's the fun. It's the solving the puzzle,
It's kayfabe,
Yeah, exactly.
Just play along.
But, like... But that's kind of the same idea, almost in a way, is the fun of solving a mystery with a huge group of people. Yeah,
that's ultimately what it ties into, is that, like, it was fun to participate in a discussion where we could not parse the answer.
Yeah, there was no way. You just couldn't get the answer, so you just had to keep spitballing speculation until something else came out and gave you another piece of the quote-unquote puzzle,
Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. It was a great time.
I think ARGs are, like, the next evolutionary step of that, and I wish more companies would put in the work to do that.
They are a ton of work, mind you.
Yeah, it is a lot of effort, which could be spent on the game itself, but
right.
It's cool.
It's really easy to sequence break an ARG if you're smart enough, which has happened before, and it kind of fucks up the ARG until somebody can go, we need to, course correct. But I mean, like, the I Love Bees, I know, like, I Love Bees doesn't get talked about as much anymore, but God almighty, I Love Bees was fun. I was not directly a part of I Love Bees, but I was on the periphery, and I would just kind of, read along about it when websites would update with more information about I Love Bees. And for all of you infants out there who don't know what I Love Bees is about, I Love Bees was a promotional ARG of all things for Halo 2. That involved I think involved an AI from the future set in the Halo timeline hijacking a bee enthusiast website to pass warnings about the Covenant invasion of Earth through time. And if you completed it and you got to certain places in the real world, you got to go to actual real-life Halo 2 demos because you helped solve the mystery, which is just fucking insanity.
Yeah,
and the coolest thing ever.
That's super cool, and I wish that more... I think that's the way to do it, is you have to pretend it's not an ARG for a while, or make it like something completely unrelated to it. Like, the Sombra one was like, oh, it's Sombra.
It's Sombra. It's Sombra.
Like
it's Sombra. We know it's Sombra, Blizzard.
Yeah, if it was disguised as something else, and then it became Sombra, that'd be way cooler.
It would be way cooler. It would be much, much cooler. But, it's hard to... Granted, it is extremely hard to do, because if you don't get if the puzzle is too hard, then it's not fun. If it's too easy, then it's not fun. So you have to be really, really good at the whole ARG making process. Which is, again, another conversation for another day. We got distracted. Mm-hmm. But the point is, kind of though, because, like... I know that Halo 2 wasn't exactly, like, early internet culture, but that was 2000 and... I was 16... 2005? Yeah, I graduated.
Yeah, around there.
So that was still early-ish in the internet.
Yeah.
YouTube was only just starting to become a thing, It was still very, your internet connection was still very slow. So a lot of I Love Bees was either very small audio chat, like audio logs, very, very, there was no video, I think, or it was all text. So I guess I Love Bees and those early ARG things count as like early video game culture, because again it would be way more convoluted these days, and they tried to do something like that for Halo 3 and it just didn't have the same effect.
And I think that's also part of it, is that like because we can spread information so quickly now, the idea of the ARG just doesn't work, because I found the solutions, here's it on Twitter. Now 100,000 people have seen it. Okay. I
it's
think
not quite the same.
You know what? Honestly, the best way to do an ARG nowadays is to do it the PT style.
Yeah.
Which is just put out a game
that
you can't like decode immediately because it's on a console only.
Mm-hmm.
And then go from there.
Fucking PT was the last time, I think, unless something crazy happens in the future, and anything is possible in this universe. PT was the last time in recent memory that you felt even remotely close to being in the Wild West of the internet again.
Mm-hmm. PT was like the last like bastion of like here's what it felt like all the time.
Every single day was like PT, because PT came from kind of nowhere and it didn't tell you what to do. You just kind of had to fumble your way through it. There was the speculation that since PT got an update at one point, that Hideo Kojima was adding more parts to the fucking, they patched in more levels of the hallway. It was just amazing. That was like the last time, because for a while, granted, now mind you, Kojima thought it would take a week for somebody to decode it, and it took a few days. But still, for like that very, very short period of time, nobody knew what the fuck PT was. And that was awesome. And that's what it was like all of the time for us.
Yeah. Imagine that, but spread out over an entire month. And that's what it was like.
For 10 years.
Yeah.
Until the internet got really big. And, you couldn't just... Video games, you didn't get updates all the time. You had to wait.
Back then, and I think this is kind of a sad thing, is like back then E3 was not just a major event, it was the event. It
was like the event to actually see games get played, and
Here are the trailers, and here are the trailers that you will need to satisfy you for the next 6 months, because you're not getting a single thing.
Oh, the old days. Oh, the old days.
What's great is that you can go back and watch some of those reveals, and there is a a noticeable shift in the crowd reaction to stuff like that. Like, do you remember the Twilight Princess reveal?
Vaguely. It was such a long time ago.
Yeah. There was... The biggest thing I can think of is the Twilight Princess reveal, which is like, hey, we're back to, quote-unquote realistic graphics,
Yeah,
and
like...
here it is. And the crowd losing their minds. And also, the Smash Bros. Brawl trailer where Snake shows up at the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was the... It
was like the moment. Yeah, like the freak out moment. Yeah. And I mean, like, you occasionally still kind of get those moments. Because everything happens again eventually, and time is meaningless and cyclical at the same time. The Final Fantasy VII remake is, like, again, the closest you'll ever get to that feeling.
Of dudes standing in chairs because they're so excited.
Yeah, the game trailer dudes standing in their chairs, like, freaking out because they're so excited. It's a shame that game's never coming out.
Or Maximilian losing his mind at Cloud and Smash. You know what?
Yes.
It's just Cloud, isn't it? Like,
it's
you just
need
to show off Cloud and
it's just Cloud. That's all it is.
That's how you make people lose their minds. Is just put Cloud in things.
Just put Cloud in everything, and you've got an instant hype machine.
Sonic and Knuckles and Cloud.
You fucking joke, but I would play that game. All right.
Cloud confirmed
Japan got a fucking... This is totally off topic. Whatever. A fucking Final Fantasy VII racing mobile game.
Well, that's not fair.
I know! I would play that. Are you kidding me? That sounds like so much fun.
Where's my Cloud in 15 DLC?
That's just fucking what's-his-face. The little kid that Robbie Damon plays. Prompto. Whatever the fuck the kid's name is. Boy... No, I'm not getting into it.
No,
I will say that is the most blatant way to try and win a fan base over, is to make your fucking character look exactly like another fucking character. It didn't work with Lightning. It didn't work again with Prompto. Fuck off, Square Enix. Okay. I'm good.
Anyways. So that was just like, that's how we got our information. Like, when it wasn't fake, when it was legit, there was still this aura of, like, mystery and way more speculation discussion going on. And we still, when big trailers come out, we still get tons of discussion about and breaking them down and analyzing them. That's what we do. We analyze things.
It's kind of our job. Yeah.
But, like, we didn't... It's different. It is a different... Whether it's better or worse to have this information is debatable, but, like, there was a shift.
It's a different kind of over, analysis. There's, if like, say, the big fucking Final Fantasy trailer drops, within 20 hours, you'll have 30 YouTube videos breaking down every single second of that trailer.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of I guess, information overload that we live in now. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't know if it's a good thing. It's just a thing. It's the world we live in now.
YouTube, 20 hours after the trailer comes out, YouTube will bury the actual trailer underneath 400
speculation videos. Yeah. So, but that's the kind of the double-edged sword, the monkey's paw of the internet. You have all of this information at the tips of your fingers. Of your fingers. Oh my god.
And it's kind of interesting because, like, I remember, like I said, participating in the Kingdom Hearts 2, like, analysis discussions and stuff like that. And I'm thinking about it now, and there was absolutely none of it for Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah.
It was, here's a trailer coming out, and, oh, that looks cool, and then, you would get, like, your requisite discussion, YouTube videos about it, but, like, there wasn't the message board forum build-up for it like there was back then.
Yeah.
And so it's just a different approach now, and, I can say I miss it, but, like...
It's not necessarily better.
I can't say I would like to go back to that era.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I like the whole not knowing anything about a game until I actually have to buy it. Like, I'm so cheap. I like knowing about my video games before I spend money on them. Like, I want to know my video game is actually good before I buy it. And fucking video game reviewers cannot be trusted on the internet. Or
and we
fucking magazines and the internet.
We get, like... what I want to know is, like, if it plays good. And we've kind of entered a polite non-verbal agreement where we don't talk about plot stuff if, like, the game is plot heavy, like a Final Fantasy or anything like that. Like, we've all sort of, like, agreed that if we get our hands on it early, we won't spoil it.
Right.
So so you can still get that aura of, like aura of mystery of, like, well, I don't know what's going to happen in this game.
Right.
But there's a difference between I don't know what's going to happen in the plot and I don't know how this game is actually going to play.
I don't know if I'm going to hate this game or not. And yeah, like, that's kind of what happened with fucking Brutal Legend. Like, Brutal Legend is kind of, I think, thank God, what killed this idea of, like, we don't know what this game is going to be. Because Brutal Legend was supposed to be a third-person action-adventure game by Tim Schafer, and it was an RTS.
Yeah, and no one wanted that.
Nobody wanted a console RTS at all, ever, and so Brutal Legend died. Whoops. But not before selling a few 100,000 copies, because, it was the guy who made Psychonauts, and da-da-da.
Yeah. And Jack Black is in it.
And it's a metal game, and it's got a cool aesthetic. It's a cartoony aesthetic, and it's cool, and blah-blah. And then, oh no, they put RTS elements in a console game, and literally nobody knew about them. And, that was, again, early internet, 2006-ish. So we're starting to get into, like, internet game review territory. And that was the first time, I think, a game that I knew about really pulled the old switcheroo,
Yeah.
And then after that, I swear to God, I feel like after Brutal Legend, you started to always get a pretty good idea of what this game is until Death Stranding. But that's kind of that's Death Stranding's appeal, is nobody knows what the fuck it is. So yeah, I guess that's what it all kind of boils down to, is just that early video game culture is weird.
So like what it kind of boils down to ultimately is, before we just get into like the final like lingering points about it, is like, to sum up like this topic, is that like what we now treat as exceptional, like Death Stranding or PT or stuff like that, was the norm back then. That was just how we got information back then. Mm-hmm. When Breath of the Wild was announced, like comparing Breath of the Wild to like Ocarina of Time, like we got so much hands-on content with Breath of the Wild.
God.
Here's 30 minutes of two devs sitting down and going through an area of Breath of the Wild.
And just playing Breath of the Wild, letting you see how the game is.
Here's Jimmy Fallon with the Switch, and here he is, him playing it live on his show with Reggie right there.
Right.
And, for one thing, you can say that's good because we got to see what the Switch looks like, and, we got to see what the game looks like, and that's great. But you compare that to, like, Ocarina of Time, where we didn't know what that game was going to even be when it came out.
Yeah, it's going to be in 3D, and that's literally all we knew.
Here is a static screenshot of Link in a brown tunic fighting a super low poly Stelphos,
Yeah.
Like, that's all we got. And so that's just, like, the difference, the gap that happened over a pretty relatively short amount of time, 10 years or so. 10, 15 years, yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's like, here's the evolution of how we get our information now.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy way to boil it down, is we go from static images to, fucking 30-minute live demos that you can stream onto your phone. The computer in your pocket can now watch the people who made Zelda play it for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and describe exactly what they're doing. Okay, well, you can see there we have the stamina meter here, and I'm going to climb up this surface. And not even like, we think of like, we got screenshots back then. We got screenshots that were like 2 inches big on a magazine page.
If you were lucky, the game you were looking forward to was like the cover article in like fucking Game Informer or EGM, so you got like the big fancy screenshots that took up the whole page. You know? But most of those games, no way. Most of those games were relegated to like one little column of the preview section. And it had maybe 2 screenshots that were tiny.
And like a lot of those like big like spreads were artwork.
Uh-huh.
They weren't actually like in-game shots. They were just like here's some artwork we drew for the magazine. So, like, yeah, that's... It's such a big shift in information presentation.
Yeah, it's insane. But it's better. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's absolutely, like, better. Like, yeah, getting, like, full-on 30-minute demos of Breath of the Wild is way better than here's a screenshot of Link fighting a moblin.
Please be excited for our game that will eventually come out.
Yeah, like, no, it's way better.
Yeah.
But, so, you know what? Here's what it is. And, like, we'll end this part of the discussion with this. Is it's like, it's only fun in hindsight.
Oh, yeah.
When
you were in the thick of it, it was not fun. You were like, what the fuck is this game going to be?
Yeah, there was fun speculating about it, but, like, the real, like, fun of it comes from, like, oh, look at how it used to look, and I wonder when they decided to change this, and, you know...
Yeah, nostalgia goggles, basically.
Yeah, and so, like, if we were, like, if 1996 Ben could get a 30-minute demo of Mario 64, he'd take that!
Yes! Absolutely.
Like, if this information was present back then, no one would... You'd be an idiot to not take it.
Right, because then you'd know exactly what you're spending your money on.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. So yeah, you know, but I love... It is fun to talk about it, just to realize how much things have changed. So yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, just like... I wrote, like, a few more, like, brief ending points to talk about, just because, like, you know, the advent of the internet and... what ended up happening with the internet is online gaming takes over.
Oh, online gaming.
And
I hate you. I'll never like online gaming. I'm sorry. Unless it's like Overwatch, maybe.
Like, and with the advent of online gaming, we unfortunately are sacrificing arcades and couch multiplayer and, like, even rental services are gone.
Yeah, even, like, GameFly doesn't really exist anymore, does it?
My formula for years and years of my childhood was every week we would go to... We had a local video store called Now Showing Video. It was, like, a block away from my house. We could walk there if we wanted to.
Right.
And I would rent whatever SNES game caught my interest. I would get a week to play it, and then we would return it, and I would find a new game to rent. And because of that, like, it's kind of funny, because, like, I didn't own a lot of games because of that. Because I could just rent them.
Yeah.
And so, you know... Yeah, go ahead.
I remember, like, demo discs.
Yes! Those are something that don't exist anymore.
I mean, demos exist now, again, after years. Like, demos are finally kind of making a comeback, thank God. But, like, demo discs are a thing. So, like, I told you earlier on, I had a subscription to the official PlayStation magazine, right? You want to know why?
Demo discs?
Demo disc every month. Are you kidding me? How fucking fancy is that?
I remember, like, the demo disc is how I got introduced to Zone of the Enders.
Mm-hmm.
We got, my friend Brian got a demo disc for, the PS2, and it had a bunch of games we didn't care about, and it had Zone of the Enders, and it had the first level of Zone of the Enders, and we would just play that.
That same level over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I can do you one better, okay?
Go up for it.
Back in this is so old, and I might have brought it up on this podcast before, but it's like the most ridiculous story ever. So back in the day, in the late 90s, Domino's ran a promotion where if you bought a large pizza, they would give you a PlayStation 1 demo disc, right?
Yes.
Had a bunch of games on it. Had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and a few other fucking things that I don't remember. But it also, for some insane reason, had Final Fantasy VIII. It had the first mission, like the first...
Oh.
It had the first, like, ish mission for Final Fantasy VIII. And so, like... We played that part obsessively, and it was impossible. It was intentionally made harder so that it would be really hard to beat the demo, right? Like, that's how old demos worked. Yeah. You made the demo really insanely hard. But we would play that demo all the time, and then finally I convinced my dad to let us buy it. But here's the thing. I was the stupidest fucking child on earth. and could not read Roman numerals. So do you want to know how I ended up with my first copy of Final Fantasy VII?
You bought the wrong one?
I bought the wrong game.
Oh, but that's perfect, though.
Isn't it perfect?
That's so good.
That is how I ended up with FF7, and FF7 changed my life, and as it turns out, Final Fantasy VIII is trash.
Yeah, you won that one.
I dodged a bullet. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII changed my life. FF7 was like it started with Ocarina of Time, and then FF7 was the nail in the coffin that made sure I'd be playing this shit until I was dead. And we got it, and we were like, this is not the game we played from fucking Pizza Hut or Domino's or whatever. And it was way better. It was way better because we couldn't take the game back, so we just kept it. It was still a Final Fantasy game, and we were still curious. But yeah, that's how I got my first copy of Final Fantasy VII, and the rest is history. And it is like the most bizarre thing to tell people now that no, large pizzas used to come with video games. Yeah. Yeah,
there's no way you'd get a deal like that nowadays. Like,
no, of course not.
It doesn't happen.
One, you can just download them for free off the fucking XBLA or the PSN, you know? You can download the first part of Resident Evil or the first level of Doom for free off of the PSN. You didn't have to buy any. Like, back in, for, like, you know, the demo disc, you'd have to buy a large pizza, or you'd have to buy the official PlayStation magazine, or you could do like I used to do and shoplift the disc out of the magazine. Sorry. Anybody in the state of Alabama, I'm really sorry.
So, Nintendo Power would very rarely put, like, music CDs. And I remember there was one specifically. There was a CD that had live orchestral versions of Smash Bros. Melee songs on it.
Oh my god.
Someone, and I don't know if you know this, but like local libraries will often have old magazines you can check out.
Yeah.
Somehow,
oh my god,
some fucking how, that Nintendo Power was put in and the disc was intact.
What?
So I checked it out.
And you kept it. And
I went, yoink.
Benjamin, you're supposed to be the good one of the two of us.
Hey, you know what? It was a library. It's not like I stole it from like a paying store. Like it was a library, and I got the disc. And honestly, it's a pretty good collection of songs.
Do you still have it?
I don't still have it, but I did. I recently like found it on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I listened to it, and I'm like, oh god, it's so good still.
Memories.
Because there's a part where they play the Rainbow Road theme, and the audience starts clapping along with it, and I'm like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
It's also funny. People. It's also funny because they tried to do an orchestral version of Mr. Game & Watch's theme.
Oh my god.
Which is all 8-bit clanky, sounds. Yeah. So they just, like, get a bunch of weird, like, whirring instruments and, like, bandsaw, wobbling. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you hear it without knowing what it is, it sounds really creepy. I'll try to find it after this.
Oh, boy.
Show it to you. But no, so that's, like, that's how you would get demos and stuff like that, is you just get physical discs. And that's kind of why I don't really like... I appreciate digital distribution as a thing that exists because it's way easier to click the button and the game is on your console.
Yeah.
But because I grew up in that era, I just like owning discs, and if it gets to the point where consoles are just straight up full digital distribution, I'll be kind of bummed out about that.
I mean, yeah, because for one, the problem you start getting is, like, what happens when your digital distribution service shuts down? Like, you don't own those games anymore, which is, again, a whole other podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a whole conversation for another day. But, I mean, the general gist of it is that, I'm an old woman. I love owning my property. I want my property to be in my hands. So that nobody can take it away from me for some arbitrary reason. But demo discs and fucking CD, like music CDs in the back of magazines. That was the old days, and it's better. It's better today, but at the same time, there's a little bit of lost charm.
Yeah, like rentals and like physical stuff like that. And before we had internet, if you wanted to play video games with strangers, you had to go to the arcade. And really, like, out of everything we've talked about here, the death of the arcade is what hits me the worst.
Yeah, I think the death of the arcade is the most tragic.
Like, I really, really, really miss going to the arcade.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it was bright and loud, and there was so much stuff to play, and you'd have to play it in a weird way. You didn't have a controller in your hand. You had to, you know, fire a gun, or drive a steering wheel, or step on arrows on a pad.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy that the barcade has kind of made a thing now that I'm a grown up, because I go to a few arcades.
There's one I went to in Lansing, and it's like, I was like, oh, awesome, a barcade, and they have a wall of pinball.
Awesome.
Which is like, well, it's like, it is kind of cool, but it's like, you don't need a whole wall of pinball machines.
Yeah.
When you, like, they don't have Street Fighter.
Oh, never mind. That's not awesome.
Yeah, they don't have, like, you know, they don't have, like, they have Mortal Kombat 1.
Oh.
They don't have, like, the X-Men arcade game. They don't have the Simpsons arcade game. It's like, you know, come on, guys.
Our barcade in Birmingham, we have two. One is actually a really cool place because it has just old, like, classic video game consoles, and nobody steals them, which blows my mind. Because it's Birmingham, like you would expect those NESs to be fucking gone, but no, they're still there. It's amazing. Good job, Birmingham. So yeah, it's old NES games and N64s and stuff like that, and that's really cool because for one, you don't have to pay, which we all love because we're cheap people. But there's also a proper barcade where you have to pay to play, and there's they have a pretty good little selection. They have Marvel vs. Capcom. They've got racing games, they've got light gun games, they've got Gauntlet Legends, which is definitely the most fun you'll ever have.
Yes.
It has Street Fighter 2, I think. I mean, you know, it had a pretty good it had Skee Ball and stuff like that, too.
Right. It's got the standard collection.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. It's called Paramount in Birmingham. If anybody from Alabama is listening, it's a damn good bar. They make a mean Moscow Mule, too. You should definitely go there. Yeah, but otherwise, you know, it is a shame to see the arcade go. I kind of understand why the arcade had to die again.
Because online multiplayer exists now, so you don't
dragging your screaming child to an arcade is like the opposite of fun, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to keep the kids busy while you shop at the mall, but nobody goes to malls anymore either. Yeah,
so, like, you know, the arcade went away because you don't need to go to the arcade to play Tekken or Street Fighter anymore. You don't need to go to the arcade to play Dance Dance Revolution or whatever, you know, or whatever racing game you want to play. You can play it at home now, online, with strangers all over the world.
But I do miss putting up a coin.
Yeah, you know, I was super deep into DDR back then, and, you know, I don't play it anymore because there's nothing nearby for me to play it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I like, only play it whenever I rarely go to a convention and they have their, you know, arcade setups there. Yeah.
So, you know.
So, yeah, you know, it's just like that's the one I miss. Because, like you said, I don't play online games. I would much rather, like...
caught in a bear trap? Yeah.
Yeah. Or, like, nicer, I'd much rather do couch multiplayer. Like, you know?
You are a nicer person, see?
Like, I don't want to play Smash Online. I want to play it with my friends here.
Yeah, that's even the death of split screen multiplayer is kind of a shame.
Yeah, I miss that one too.
I miss that. I mean, of course you can't screen cheat anymore, which is nice, you bastards. Don't do that. Yeah. But, you know, like, you do lose some of the charm. I don't know.
You can't hit your friend when they win.
Yeah, that's the most important part, is that I can't, like, flip out at my friends when they win or when they can't do the fucking co-op right. Oh, Sarah, my other Sarah in my life, if you're listening. But yeah, it's, I don't know, it's crazy. I mean, like, the ultimate kind of thing is just how crazy it is things have changed.
Yeah.
How much they've changed.
Yeah, like, when you take a step back and you think, like, how far we've come from, like, the early days to how we get information, how we play, even, like, how we play games now, like, just, you know, with online or whatever, like, it's such a different field And
how much things have changed in it's 20 years. That's it.
Yeah, 20 years, which, relatively is not that long.
It's not.
Yeah.
It took a much longer time for other mediums to develop the way that video games have in such a very, very, very short period of time.
That's not even a generation.
No, it's not. It's crazy. 20 years to go from little teeny tiny screenshots in the corners of magazines to 30-minute gameplay demos with the creators themselves. That's really all you need to know.
Yeah, that's the ultimate. And, it's kind of great because we have direct comparisons. We can compare Ocarina of Time's announcement to Breath of the Wild's announcement.
Right.
We can compare Kingdom Hearts 2 to Kingdom Hearts 3 even, where it's no one's speculating on these trailers the way they were back then. They're just getting excited about them.
Because Kingdom Hearts 3 is never coming out.
So... But that's just whatever speculation we do have, after the trailer comes out, there's going to be 3 or 4 interviews with the developer who's going to be here's what we're doing with this, and, blah, 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 here's how it works with this. It's even the idea of, developer interviews didn't really happen back then.
Yeah, you had, the very rare occasional interview in a magazine, Yeah. But... it was just one. Now you can get an interview with fucking anybody, just go Google it on YouTube and you'll get, 20. So, it's a completely different field. Everything's just changed, so,
mm-hmm. So, it's, the most interesting thing to think of now is just, I don't even know where it would go from here. How do you...
Oh, my God. I don't even know.
How do you make it easier?
The thought of it is even crazy. The thought of it is insane to me.
The game is being built while we're playing it?
Yes, the game is being beamed directly into your brain as it's constructed. That's the best thing I can think of. So, maybe we'll all eventually have brain chips and we'll just play video games as they're made. Who knows?
The augmented reality will be real, and that's how we'll do it.
Awesome. Fucking dope.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I think that about does it.
That wraps it up.
Yeah. So thanks for Broke for Free for background music. As always, link to his work in the description. Check us out on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. Check us out on, you can email us about old video games if you want to, at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. Hey, guess what, guys? We have a Patreon now.
Woohoo!
And if
we are ready to sell out, baby. 100%.
If you like what we do and you want us to keep doing it,
well, we'll probably keep doing it, but
we're going to keep doing it regardless. But if you want to make it easier on us to do it, because subscriptions cost money and games cost money, and also without it, not even that, it's also a great way to show your support, and we would be eternally grateful.
We'll love you forever.
Yeah, whatever amount you want to throw down, even if it's just $1, it would mean so much to us to see that.
But if you donate a lot of money, you get a really dope t-shirt of our extremely dope logo.
Yeah, we're going to, at the $20 limit, you will get a t-shirt of our cool logo that I love. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And there might be more in the future.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So we're kind of starting this also because I want to announce another sort of mini thing we're doing for the podcast from now on. Which is that at the we're dedicating the last the third episode of every month, because we've started doing 3 a month now. The third episode of every month will be our indie game week. Where we both agree at the beginning of a month to pick a certain indie game on Steam or PSN, and we will give it a shot, and that will be our analysis for that week. Will be that indie game, or indie games if they're small enough.
Right.
So that's just our way of branching out a bit more and not doing so many big mainstream games, because this first half of the year has proven to be difficult to
God.
Yeah.
So many. Too much. Oh, God. Too many video games. Help me.
So if you guys want to email us certain
Yes.
indie games you think we should play, we would gladly receive that. Or hey, if you want to give us demos or, early beta versions of your indie game for us to break down, we like that too.
Be dope.
Yeah. So this month we are doing Her Story and A Night in the Woods.
Yep.
So that'll be the last weekend of August. So that'll be cool.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. And so, Sarah, tell us about your other podcast.
Hey, I'm in another podcast. It's called Big Gay Nerds. It's an LGBT live play podcast where me and a bunch of friends sit around and play tabletop games and basically just goof off and try out different systems and have a lot of fun because they're all really, really cool people. We are about to get back into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, so you should come check us out. We're on SoundCloud at the Gorge, Jesus God. The other one. We're on SoundCloud at Big Gay Nerds. We're on Twitter at BGNcast, I think. I'll eventually remember that. And we're definitely on Tumblr at biggaynerds.tumblr.com. So please come check us out. We love doing it, and it's a lot of fun, so yeah.
It's really cool. Their latest game is super dope.
It's amazing. Blades in the Dark is like crazy fun. So yeah,
it's super fun. And then also, I'm not doing it for the rest of this month because Mary Rose is in Japan. I want to go.
What? Bullshit.
Yeah, she's in Japan for the month. So
Whatever.
There won't be any more streaming for a couple weeks. But that will resume. We're going to go back to playing more Kingdom Hearts, and I swear by this next time we're all going to have headsets.
Yay!
So you'll be able to hear all of us pretty cleanly from now on. We finally cracked the formula for audio, and then once I'm done with this session, the next session we do, the third one, I'm going to start putting it up on our YouTube channel. So
cool.
That'll be it.
Fun.
Yeah. So that'll be it for us. This one's a tough one.
Fuck whoever came up with those stupid Final Fantasy VII rumors. Because I lost a lot of my childhood trying to do those things. Do you understand, people? How many hours I spent trying to pull off your stupid bullshit idea of how to bring back Aerith? Do you think I didn't try it? Do you think I didn't have better things to do with my childhood? Fuck you!
Good night, everyone.